Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Delighted and honored that you're here, that we get to have this playtime once again to look at these ancient teachings and how they fit into our modern-day world. One of the, I think, most profound, when it's understood, statements that this man Yeshua ever made 2,000 years ago was, "Let thine eye be single, and thy body will be filled with light." Now, if we talk to modern-day physicists, they're going to tell us that matter is light energy reduced in its rate of vibration. Single focus on one piece of mind energy to all others brings it into, literally, the world of matter, into the world of light. And so as Michael started out with this passage that Jeannie read, we can focus on anything. And it's time for us as a species, time for us as a culture, to really start to look at what we're focusing on, because there are many, many danger signals in the world that the focus is becoming so split and so based in trauma, and those who proclaim that love is their guide are leading many people into all kinds of crazy hostility and fear. Two reports I heard this morning, one, a particular governor of a particular state in the United States, said that he was looking forward to the day when, without getting into politics, his opposing party, whatever their name is, would be so rare that you'd have to hunt them with dogs. I mean, think about an actual governor of a state with millions of people is recommending the hunting of the opposing politicians with dogs. Like, how bizarre is that? And another politician of a similar persuasion, today it's reported, said that if he gets elected, he's going to destroy a particular political persuasion, a particular group of people. And you look at how much language is being pointed in the direction of hostility and fear. And if you talk to these folks, there are people who will tell you that they're good Christians. Now, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into that idea, because one does not become an actual, what the world calls Christian, until their mind is converted to love. When those that heard that love was the answer, but refused to do the hard work of facing themselves and healing, they created a debilitating system called churchianity. If you go back 2,000 years ago, we've said this often, and we'll say it many more times yet, till everybody gets the idea. Here's a group of people that are with this man Yeshua. They've been with him for some time, and they ask him a question about how to behave, and he answers them. He answers them with an idiom, not a literal answer. But half of his audience, at that point it was half of his disciples, turned away grumbling, refused to do the work that he suggested, and their grumble was, too hard a saying. Too hard a saying. And by often, what they're saying is, I don't want to face myself. I don't want to have to heal. I just want to create a belief system about how you're going to fix it for me, rather than follow your directions that I need to do the work that I need to do. So this mind cut off from love, knowing that love is the answer, spouts all kinds of wonderful things, but unconverted to a mind based in love, it continues on its violent path of fear, intimidation, and destruction. Only now it does it, quote unquote, in the name of love. Is there a much bigger oxymoron than that? Unchanged, worldly fear-based minds and family systems have groomed their children through violence-based thinking, threats of hell and punishment and hate for those who did not participate in their brand of judgment and condemnation. Instead of the practice of love in regard to neighbor, and remember that in Aramaic, the word neighbor means anybody that you think about. That's in a language that's sourced at least 5 of the world's major religions. And what is the practice of love toward another? That is standing as a space of active present love. That's a converted mind. One that's converted from an hostility and fear-based mind to a love-based mind. Now, if you look through that text that so many in churchianity profess to believe in, called the Bible, several hundred times this text they profess belief in says, fear not, in many different ways, but basically says fear not over and over and over again. But not having practiced the basic requirement of their own faith practice, they had fear driven deeply into their own minds and bodies by authorities that failed to follow even the basic tenets of their own faith. And you remember that there was a way to get rid of love in those ancient teachings. And this isn't theology, this isn't churchianity, this is just where you live, if you want to live as a human being. What does one have to do? One has to come to the experience of that which, it was said, would get rid of the fear. And you'll notice the words they use, cast out, very much like a demon. What does it say? Perfect love will cast out fear. Until one does the work that brings them to that experience, they can't imagine anything other than attacking and destroying. So one generation to the next spews this violent rhetoric and threat, and of course it blames it on God. God's going to get you, hell, all of that. You're going to be condemned. And you look at 2,000 years ago, that guy tried to get this man Yeshua to play the judgment game. And I'm not here to judge humanity. I'm here to save him. And so when he refused, what did they do? Those unconverted minds turned around and said, yeah, but after you die, then you'll face his judgment, his wrath. Their own, what should I say, their own unresolved hatred and fear projected into their mind's image of the Creator. So what happens is, when one's raised in this violent rhetoric, the children get locked into the same neighborly violence that they were raised in. In the name of judge not, what does one do? Well, see, I have permission to judge here because, you see, the Bible told me so. Garbage. Found it interesting that the state of Utah, in a number of school systems there, there've been this book banning thing going on. There was a video on YouTube the other day that showed a teacher who was concerned about losing her job, and she showed large shipping boxes, and I'm talking about boxes that are like maybe 5 feet by 5 feet by 5 feet, like huge, like 10 of them jammed to the top with books. And she explained that the state had come in, guess which state, and these were books being taken off the shelves to be removed from the school. One of the books was The Life of Rosa Parks, the little lady who sat on a bus and wouldn't move. They banned her book. What's going on? It's time for a big wake-up. It's time to be woke. Because the people sleeping in this hostility and fear-based mind are about to bring tragic results upon our world. We've seen it time after time. If you look historically, you see how when this kind of rhetoric takes over, tens, hundreds, thousands, millions of people get slaughtered. And oftentimes, so-called in the name of religion, but it's really in the name of churchianity. Religion could never call for such a thing, actual religion. So the basic tenet is to convert one's own mind, to bring one's own mind, and that's the objective of this work. I'm up for converting every person on planet Earth. And I don't mean into my religion or anybody else's religion. I mean simply converting hostility and fear-based minds who believe that that's what will protect them into love-based minds who know that's the only way to be safe. So that's what this whole body of work is about. Conversion from fear and hostility, blame, guilt, condemnation, gossip, slander, vengeance, into minds that are fueled by the fuel that we're designed for. Just hold a newborn child and tap into the essence of that newborn, and you know exactly what we're here for. And tap into that newborn essence, and there's no question that it is love. And it isn't that the child is loving you. If you check out when you're holding that newborn, is the newborn loving me? No, the newborn is the presence of love. Human life is the presence of love. When they asked Yeshua, what's most important in the law? He didn't say love your neighbor. He, in essence, said human life is the most important key. Live as the presence of love. When you think of the Creator, when you think of neighbor, and by so doing, you maintain your human life. It isn't religious to maintain your human life. It's having a life. Whatever you believe in, doesn't matter whether you've ever been inside of a church or a mosque or whatever. It's irrelevant. Do you live with a human life as your created essence? Nothing to do with any kind of anything except to actually join the human race, which means allow your mind, do the work that it takes to remove the hostility and fear-based perceptions and interpretations of life and be restored to the true essence of the human being. You know, one of the passages I talk about in my book is how many times does this innocent, sweet presence of love have to be beaten into submission to finally buy into an hostility and fear-based world? Well, if you look at the number of minds that are running around doing it, it's been a lot. I referred the other day to the Hank Williams song where the melody line, the question is asked of Hank Williams, why do you drink? Why do you blow smoke? Why must you live out every song that you wrote? And the reply in the song is, you know, if you've been brought up in my condition, it's a family tradition. When do we give up the family traditions based in sadness and rage and fear and hatred and vengeance and condemnation and terrorism, terrorizing little babies about the Creator who is love and projecting that vile parent's reality structure onto the Creator and telling the child that the Creator has the same attributes as me, your father, or your mother, and boy, you're going to get it. It's one of the most prevalent forms of terrorism in the world. When do we wake up? When do we become woke? What is woke? Woke is standing as the space of active present love, no longer lost in the brainwash of a culture based in hostility, fear, rage, blame, and violence. And you'll note there's a certain faction going on in our world that anything that they don't agree with is now woke and up for being destroyed. Definitely a big wake-up call. Time for each individual to step up to the plate and begin to do their work, because that's the only way that game is going to be changed. And we're here to support the changing of that game by offering a refined set of tools for how to wake up from, you look at one of the chapters of my book, it's called Waking from the Has-Been. Interesting, I wrote that chapter 30 plus years ago, before waking up was a derogatory term. But be aware that each one that uses a derogatory term is projecting the content of their own mind on whoever or whatever it is they're being derogatory about, because the mind of love can't do that. But it's so prevalent, it seems like, well, of course, that's what I listened to that preacher talk about love just the other day, and then he told me about how those people are going to go to hell and how we should help them get there. What? So the practical application is where we live as human beings, and ultimately where literally our whole culture goes. And right now, our whole culture seems to have been given permission to step into the worst characteristics of the non-human mind and bring them to fruition throughout the culture. Big tap on the shoulder, big wake-up call. And so that's what we're here to do, is to provide those tools and to provide support and understanding for the use of those tools. What's the healing process look like? Jeannie shared her healing crisis with us last week. And one of the comments she made yesterday, and I'm not sure, Jeannie, just how long you'd been dealing with the neck pain that you'd had. Probably 5 years, maybe longer.
Yeah.
And after this major healing crisis, which came out through her throat, a lot of trauma in her throat, well, there were a couple of days we didn't do the show because she literally didn't have a voice. And my take is the fact that she's doing her work, that she stands in willingness, that she's vitalizing herself. When she hit that level of vitality, that energy that had been stored in the back of her neck, that was, literally she was going around the house pretty much most of the day with a TENS unit, with an electrical stimulator in her neck, just to pain in her neck. Major. That was a pretty traumatic healing crisis. That's probably one of the strongest ones you've done yet, sweetie. And
comparative to the COVID.
Yes, comparable to COVID. Yeah, for sure. And so that's what it takes. And when you realize that these are generationally installed patterns through them, and the energy that needs to be embraced in healing. And I'm talking about this to inspire you to willingness, to know that this is the process and this can be done. That whatever, based in any form of generational hostility or fear, whether it's you, parental, grandparents, 2 generations, 10 generations, 50 generations ago, when you can embrace those energetic patterns in your own physiology, it is not going to be Dr. Feelgood to feel them, but you don't have to carry them around as a string hung around your neck. You get to face them and throw them off and get finished with them. Elsewise, those energetic patterns are literally, physiologically, the very things that kill us. They're the things death are made of. You go back to those ancient texts, and they knew exactly how the energy system works. They said, with man, death began. We weren't designed to die. We made the process up. And it's so deeply instilled in people's minds and habits systems that they can't imagine a life without those energetic patterns. Again, you look at that scripture text, over 300 times it says, some variation with the words, but basically says, fear not. And yet, the leaders in churchianity will stand up there and say, fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Now, it's interesting, if you read the texts around that, they'll say, well, but it doesn't really mean fear there. It means, well, why are you saying something that you don't mean? because you're saying exactly what you mean. You know that the way to keep people under the thumb is through fear, and so you use fear to instill that in them. If you actually meant awe, you know what you'd say, preacher? You'd say, awe for the Creator is the beginning of wisdom. You wouldn't say fear of. And then when somebody confronts you, change your definition. That's just pure connery. That's just pure fakeism. When do we wake up from the has-been, from the past, from the generational patterns? And when do we choose, as Michael was talking about, to put our attention on ourselves and others, especially the people called the enemy? When do we put our attention on them and understand that they are, as we are, the presence of love? When do we wake up? When do we claim the truth about who we are as human beings? And when do we stop living out every song that was written by the previous generations? When do we give up those family traditions? The family tradition we need to develop is the ability to stand as the space of conscious, active, present love for our children, for the worst offenders of the world. Well, but Michael, does that mean I just let everybody get away with everything? No, I didn't say that. Well, that's what it sounds like. It's all. One of my mentors was a Superior Court judge in Albany, Georgia, Judge Asa D. Kelly. He was about the closest thing to a saint I've ever seen or met. Being a Superior Court judge in Albany, Georgia, and Albany has been called a body part lower than the armpit of Georgia. There's some pretty heavy-duty stuff back down in those backwoods. Judge Kelly would sit in judgment on people who committed absolutely heinous, blood-chilling crimes. And he'd say, love you like a brother, but you know what? And this is literally what he used to say. He'd say, the community took up a collection and built a building with bars around it, and then they hired me to determine who's safe in the community and who's not. And if you're not safe in my community because I honor my community, I'm going to put you behind bars. And Kelly put thousands, probably tens of thousands over his tenure on the bench of people behind bars. But he never punished one of them. And one of the reasons that I have this course now called Laws of Living is because Judge Kelly asked for it for the prison system, for the rehabilitation, for the healing of prisoners. That's where Laws of Living came from. We cut recidivism in some pretty heavy-duty prisons by over 90% by simply bringing the accurate words and the accurate teachings of Yeshua, especially about forgiveness, into the jails. It didn't matter how heinous a crime the criminal he created had done. Judge Kelly would invite him to Laws of Living and say, you want to rehabilitate? You want to heal? Here you go. So what would the melody line be in your song as opposed to, why do you drink? Why do you blow smoke? Why must you live out every song that you wrote? What's your condition that needs to be faced? That keeps you, when faced with certain persons, certain situations, certain ideas, certain words, certain circumstances. What is it you need to face and wake up from and not have it run you anymore? Can you maintain your human life, love, in the presence of someone you think has done heinous? Do you blame them for the fact that you can't maintain love? Well, if you do, you're in projection. The number one order of business is to maintain your human life. And that doesn't depend on what anybody else does. But if the challenge, if the family tradition is blame, which is just about universal, it's time to give up the blame game. Why is your mind in the condition it's in right now? Because it has that condition in it. It's not in that condition because Bill or Harry or Mary or Hortense did or said something. It's in that condition because that condition's in it. And your challenge, should you choose to accept it, is to work through those conditions that are based in all sorts of hostility and fear. So that's our objective. Any thoughts for you on that, Jeannie, and how that relates to what you read?
I think it's right on. So we have 27 minutes. Somebody press 1. Let's have some conversation. If you're on another station, our calling number is 563-999-3581. And press 1. We've had some awesome conversations the last few days with, we had Peter from Sweden. We had Ron from, Boston?
Massachusetts, yeah.
Yeah. So what's going on for you? Let's direct the rest of the show. Ask your question or make your comment.
So if you're out there in this land, how can we support you? What's on your mind? What question, if you just listened to what I said the last half hour or so, what came up for you in listening to that? Is there anything that needs refinement, anything that needs clarifying, anything that doesn't make sense? Or anything that does make sense that you'd like to get a deeper insight into?
I'll just say we also, on June the 1st, Michael, they watched Introduction and Advanced Understanding to A Course in Miracles in the Global Book Club. And then they had an hour of questions and answers, which tomorrow we have some family things scheduled, and so we're going to be playing that hour of questions and answers. But the entire, your noise, Michael, the entire 3 hours is now on the website. You can go to Global Book Club and then click underneath that, A Course in Miracles, and you can watch the whole 3 hours, and it was awesome. Had good conversation.
It's on our YouTube channel too, isn't it?
It is.
So if you just go to YouTube and type in Michael Rice, R-Y-C-E, you'll open our YouTube channel. And this is actually a video that until just a couple of days ago, yesterday it was, that we did this Global Book Club. That video has been part of our video catalog. It costs $40 to buy it. And actually, since we got streaming, it went down to $20. But now you can get it free. Just go to our YouTube channel, and it's there, along with questions and answers from several people. Say it again, sweetie.
It wasn't yesterday. It was June the 1st, last Thursday.
June 1st. Okay. Yes, a couple days ago. So you can grab that and give it a listen. It's a synthesis of, I'm not even sure now, 100 and some different references in A Course in Miracles. It just assembles it in a way that, the way I explain it, and the reason I created that lesson is because I probably created it 6 or 7 years after I started working with A Course in Miracles. And I'd talk to people, I was in Fort Lauderdale at that point, so a lot of people came through. People would come from all over the country and all over the world and end up at the Course in Miracles session. And I'd see people that just like, oh yeah, I've been working with Course for 15 years, and okay, so how do you forgive? Well, you just forgive. I said, no, how do you actually do it? The Course tells you exactly how to do it. Do you know how to do that? Well, yeah, I do it all the time. What is it you do? Well, I just forgive. And what I realized is that the Course is like a 10,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and nobody's got the box stop. 40 plus years of working with the Course, and I've spoken to Course in Miracles groups all over the country, all over the world. And I've never met one person working with A Course in Miracles that knows how forgiveness works. I mean, not one. Teachers and experts, not one. So I created that lesson as a synthesis, as I say, of, I don't remember how many now. I think 100 and, I'm not even sure, 130 or so different lessons that gives you a box top that you can put all the pieces in if you're working with the Course. Here's how you make sense of it. Give it a listen if you'd like. And of course, if that arouses questions for you, then we're here with the show to continue that conversation and answer those questions. And by the way, if this work is supporting you, when I think about, this is a video that's always been something that's been in our catalog and charged for. Many of the things that were in our catalog we've done on the show over the years and given them away. If this is supporting you, I would really appreciate it, since we're not on the road anymore, or that's cut like a big axe into our cash flow. And if the work that we're doing supports you, this radio show supports you, our YouTube channel, or our web page is 20,000 pages. All this stuff doesn't get done for free. When we traveled, we would do it for nothing. We do the workshops, we travel, we paid our own expenses. But that wasn't because we were independently wealthy. That was because we were committed to giving it away, and people would donate to support it and keep it moving. And that's the only thing that keeps it moving now. So if this is fitting for you, if this is making sense, if it's supporting you, then I invite you to jump on the website. Again, our website is whyagain.org, whyagain.org. There's a donate button. If it fits for you, if you're in a position to. And people say, well, how much should I donate? Well, whatever fits. How's it supporting you? Is it worth millions? Great. Do you have millions? Then donate it. Oh, you don't have millions? Okay, well, if you got $1, then donate it. Put something back in as support. Things have, rather frankly, gotten thin since we stopped traveling in terms of cash flow and keeping, we have Heartland. It hasn't opened because of COVID and going on 4 years now, but the expenses still go on. The taxes still go on. The electric bill has to be paid, et cetera, et cetera. So if it's supporting you, please jump on and hit the donate button. Beyond that, the other way you can support us is by passing it on. Or if there's any kind of skill that you have that could assist us. Got a skill with AI, got a skill with writing, got a skill with, might help move this farther across the planet, then jump on board. We could use some support at Heartland, and it's been vacant for 4 years. Last year we were there, and I was very pleasantly surprised how great a shape everything was still in, but we could use some support from an electrician or two, a carpenter or two. So if you've got a skill you could offer, that'd be awesome. Please jump in. We could use all the help we can get. And or if you've got somewhere you'd like us to present, we're not traveling these days. We've got a granddaughter that's 4. And that's a prime motivator in our world and in our lives. So we're not moving around the country and around the globe the way we used to, but we can move around the country and around the globe via Zoom, as we're doing with this Global Book Club. We've started a second study with them, The Course in Miracles. And, we've done the Why book with them for a little better than a year now. So what's on your mind? Again, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you're listening to the show. And then if you have a question, push 1, and through the magic of technology, that raises a hand. And Jeannie will introduce you.
I'm not real sure. There are 3 hands that are still up from Dr. Tim's show, and they all just flickered just a second ago, so I'm not sure which one just hit for a second round of questions, but I'm going to try each one at a time until we find out which one. So, Audrey, was it you that repressed 1 again?
Yeah, it's possibly me, because I was unsure of what I should be doing. I'm confused. Well, that's, yes. My question, okay, I have, Michael, of course I have your book. And when the chapter inherited patterns, and
right.
I'm going to read this, but I'm really reading it to myself. What you
Okay.
don't deal with, what you don't deal with will be passed on. What you are willing to face, sort out, and heal will no longer infect family dynamics. The pattern then stops with you. The first time
Right.
I read it, they were words. And as my level of awareness expands, I'm realizing, wow, and I did the work, on the support group this past Thursday, I did the worksheet. And then
Right.
in your book here, I put on my margin where it says, what is learning? And the key thought is, what change? Start with the part you control, yourself. And then
Right.
on my margin, I put inner work. Now, when I was doing the worksheet, I was, and I'm still unclear between feelings and emotions. Could you clarify that? And then with the wheel, I don't know which is feelings and emotions. Could you go slowly with it? And I'll listen to it. You could unmute me, and I will listen to it off air.
Okay. Well, good questions. And, what I hear you describing is you've been hanging out with the work long enough to build the brain cells to go, oh, that's what that means. And that's what we're here to do. And oftentimes the words feelings and emotions are used interchangeably. I've been working toward clarifying that in this work, and I think in my book I was still calling what I would today refer to as emotions. I was still calling them feelings. And that's kind of a cultural thing. That's sort of what our culture speaks of. Well, how are you feeling? Oh, angry, sad, what have you. But those things are really emotions. Feelings are sensations that we have going on in our structure. I stubbed my toe. How is your toe feeling? It hurts. So that would be a sensation in the body, where an emotion would be the result of, or the warning signal that the body serves up, that a particular quality of mind energy is being brought into the structure. And when that, what the cell biologists are telling us, well, let me back up further. If you go to the opening words in the book of John, where we're told it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. What that actually says in Aramaic was, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. So this is a statement that tells us that we're creators, that we're literally, on an ongoing basis, creating our physiology. Now, my take is that the Creator put a warning signal in, and when we engaged in a piece of mind energy, literally, when that energy lands on the cell, it creates what we would call an emotion. It creates a warning signal as to whether or not this mind energy is. If it is, then when I think that thought, my emotions are going to be of joy and aliveness and lightness and being. And if they're destructive, then my emotions are going to be those of some form of hostility or fear. And that's my cellular structure warning me that my thinking, my mind energy is off base. And so now we go to the cell biologist. You can look up Bruce Lipton's work on YouTube. And what Bruce is showing is, in the laboratory, when you think a thought, that thought becomes a molecule in your so-called body, something that is of the non-physical realm, thinking, becomes what we call physical. In other words, it lowers in its rate of vibration. So and I said this earlier when Yeshua was talking about, let thine eye be single. If we're focused on one piece of mind energy to the exclusion of all others, thy body will be filled with light. It's going to turn into what we call chemistry in your cell. As the mind energy is interfacing with the receptor side on the cell, it creates an emotion, a warning signal that just tells us whether our thinking is on base or off base. Warns us that we're off base, and that's where we want to apply forgiveness and restructure our thinking. Does that make sense, Audrey? Does that fit for where you're going with this?
Yes, it does, Michael. Thank you. Thank you. And
okay.
Can
Does
you hear me?
Clarify what you needed clarified? Were there any other thoughts to go for?
Yes, and I'm so glad that there is a replay that we could access, because one of my, I'm going to call it weak areas, is that I am a slow learner. One of my strong points that I am persistent. And
right.
I'm so grateful that I can go into the archive and I could replay it, and I'm like a cow chewing its cud until I'm satisfied with my knowing it, and I become it. And thank you. Yes, you have answered
awesome.
it.
Well, we appreciate the fact that you can go in and do the archives too. That's something that I often think about with Blog Talk Radio, and how much I appreciate the technology that they've offered us, that you can be where you are and we can be here in Virginia and they're up in New Jersey, and somebody could be listening in China and we're having a conversation, and then, you know, as soon as the conversation's complete, people can go and download that conversation and send it to each other. I mean, to me, that's like, you know, if you look at what we've had in ages past, that's just such a monumental gift. And, you know, thank you to Blog Talk Radio that they make it available to us, you know, economically enough that we've been able to carry this show on for 12 years. You know, we don't get paid to do this. We pay to do this show. And thank you, Blog Talk Radio, for offering us the technology at an affordable rate that we can continue to do this. And we've got a record that's going to last for eternity of all these conversations. You know, 12 years, 5 days a week, an hour a day. How cool is that? I think it's pretty awesome. So thank you for appreciating it, and thank you for supporting it.
Thank you.
All right.
Blessings.
Hey, you have a blessed one, too. Lots of love. All right, Miss Jeannie, it looks like we're down to about, 11 or so minutes. So we've got time for at least one more good conversation. If there's anybody out there in listener land, push one. Let's talk about it. What's on your mind? How can we support you? What refinements are needed? And, you know, I really loved how Audrey basically, you know, if you go back and listen to Yeshua 2,000 years ago, he says his teaching is only for those who have, quote, the eyes to see and the ears to hear. And that's what Audrey just referred to. Now, our modern day language, you know, I think we can fairly safely assume that most everybody in his audience have what we call physical eyes and ears. So he obviously wasn't saying that it was about the physical eyes and ears. What he was in essence saying was, you've got to have the brain cells. If the brain cells you're listening through don't match what I'm speaking, then you don't hear what I say. You only hear your listening. If they do match, then you don't hear what I say. You still hear your listening, but your listening's on track with my speaking. You know, we do a workshop called Communication. Did you hear what I think I said? And most people are listening through such different brain cell structures that they don't hear the same things. And what we're looking to do is to help people to build the brain cells to be able to distinguish between what's being said and what the mind offers, and keeping on track with what's really truly intended. So, Miss Jeannie, you've got a hand up for us?
Do, and it's Miss Susan, area code 610. You're on the air.
Welcome,
Hello,
young lady.
friend. Hey.
Hey. Well, you sound joyful today.
Oh, well, I'm having an interesting situation with Jacob, and I wanted to ask you about it.
He and I have
Okay.
been in long conversations, and often he gets into looping and he complains a lot about politics and goes into these tirades and things. But he began talking about how much Tim and I had hurt him when he was here, and we had to call the police and turn him out of the house. We were afraid for ourselves, for our physical and mental
Right.
okayness, and we ended up calling the police, and he stayed in his car one night beside our house. He didn't go anywhere, but we said, until this settles down. And he was psychotic. It was really, I realized that was the wrong thing for us to do. Somehow there was a better way, and we didn't know it then. But he brought it up,
Right.
and he said, you made me homeless, and I still haven't gotten over that. And at first I felt terribly triggered, and I started to say, I got to get off the phone. I can't talk about this. Then I realized I'm going to try something. And I said, Jacob, we made a terrible mistake with you back then. We were scared, and we didn't know how to handle the how you were. We just didn't know
Right.
what to do, and we made bad choices. And I want to say I am so sorry that we don't have another chance, that we did it that way. And there was this incredible silence. And then he said, thank you for saying that. And I thought, okay, a chink in the armor. And then I said, I bet there are a lot of things that your parents have done and we've done that you just need to hear that we didn't do it right. You need an apology and another way of talking. And he said, I do. And I'm thinking about his father and how probably all that he would need is to have his father say, well, his father does say, I'm sorry, or used to, but then he would repeat the behavior that was so harsh. And so the apology didn't mean much, but my experience with Jacob hasn't been like that. I've thanks to the worksheets and continually holding a space of love for him and seeing him as whole and seeing his future as a good one and a bright one has helped so much. But this was like a moment when something turned, and sometimes we will be on the phone for 2 hours, late afternoons, and my daughter is too busy to have those conversations.
Right.
So I'm able to do that. And I just thought, where do we go from here now? I guess he'll show us where we can go. But it just seemed like a moment of grace that I was able to come off my trigger and actually try something different.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And, at some point in the conversation, I can see where it might become appropriate, having this as a reference point, to invite him to look at going, you've owned what you did and that you saw it was mistaken. Might be appropriate to get him to take a look at, well, Jacob, do you remember what you were doing before we called the police that day? Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to be responsible for my fear, and I was afraid in that, but you triggered a lot of fear for me. Do you remember what those behaviors were? Do you think that was really appropriate? Maybe you could consider an apology in the other direction too. Might be a space that will open at some point.
I have
Jeannie,
a feeling that's going to happen. Go ahead.
No, please, you go ahead.
I just think that's probably going to happen. I may be wrong, but he said something about, well, I know that I was doing some pretty crazy things. That's the closest he has come to it. Yeah. But at the ends of our discussions, often when he's been on a rant, and I'll pick something out in the rant that I'll say, oh, I know what you mean. I just try to stay with him. At the end of the rant, he'll say, sorry I went on and on like that. And I said, Jacob, you are processing up the kazoo and out your ears. You're doing a tremendous amount of inner work, and I'm honored to be the recipient of it.
That's powerful. That's huge for you to be able to acknowledge that to him. I think that's awesome.
I hope
Suggestion.
So. It seems like, yeah.
Yesterday afternoon, Jeannie and I were going to the movies. We decided to take some time off. We did a really long. We both are going around today with muscles we didn't know we had. We started really early in the morning and worked hard in the garden, shoveled and moved stuff, and I mean it was a big garden day. So we decided to go treat ourselves for dinner and do a movie. And there was one preview that I'd seen that I thought this particular movie was the one, but it turned out not to be. And we accidentally bought tickets for a movie titled About My Father.
Oh, boy.
I think that it'd be really beneficial for you and Tim to go and see. And it would really be awesome to invite Jacob to go and see it.
And it's out
really,
there. It's not streamed.
It's out there. Robert De Niro is the father. And basically, yeah, it's just in the theaters just for the last few days. And it's just really powerful. You know, he talks about how, you know, his father was, this young man talks about his father was an immigrant and sacrificed to come over from Italy, and he talks about how things were in Italy and how much pain and how much trauma there was in Italy, and now they came over here and, you know, they're going to work hard to provide a better life for their children. And, you know, frankly, his father is kind of a, what word could I use? A cranky old fart that is down on everything that's not him, you know? I mean, that's what he is. And, you know, there's a marriage about to take place, and being the old-time Italian father, he's not going to give grandmother's ring to his son to propose unless he meets the family. And they're, you know, kind of working-class stiffs, and the girl he's marrying, their family's like supremely wealthy, with the house in the Hamptons and supremely wealthy. And so in order to get the ring, he invites, you know, his father to come to a holiday weekend with them. And it's a tragic mess, you know, mess. But then the young man, through circumstances, wakes up to what's really possible. And it's just a powerful turnaround. Just a powerful turnaround about acceptance, about recognizing, some crazy stuff, and underneath it all is the love. It's a powerful experiential message. And so we were really delighted that we accidentally bought tickets to that, and we thought we were seeing a different movie, but it's really worth seeing. About My Father. Yes. Yeah. Very
nice.
serendipitous.
I wrote it down. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, very much so.
I know we're about to cut off, but I wanted to ask Jeannie. Jeannie, when you read, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I wonder if you could read just a little more slowly when you're doing the Michael Singer.
I'd be glad to.
Because it goes by really fast, and I'm catching some of it, but not all.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll consciously slow down.
Cool.
Oh, thank you so much.
And if you do go to see that movie, let me know what you think, and let me know what Jacob's response is if he chooses to pick up and do it too. I think it'll be a life changer for him. It'll be a life changer.
Oh, boy. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
Cool. All right, young lady, we appreciate you. Everybody, thanks for joining us. Have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. And blessings. Bye-bye.